Hello and welcome to Bloody Good. My name's Emily and this is From the Page to the Screen, a show where I look at horror media and the books they're based on to determine which version is best. Today, I'm looking at Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King and comparing it to its TV show adaptation. Mr. Mercedes begins with a brutal massacre involving a Mercedes driven into a crowd of job seekers. Detective Bill Hodges worked the case desperately to no avail, retiring from the force with the case hanging over him. Now, whiling away his retirement, drinking and not doing much else, he's suddenly contacted by the Mercedes killer, who is attempting to goad Bill into killing himself. Bill resumes his hunger for the case and attempts to solve it once and for all. This book is the first in a trilogy by Stephen King, which is now known as the Bill Hodges trilogy, but today we're just looking at the first book and the first season of this show. Now, this was Stephen King's first dip into kind of a hard-boiled detective story, and I think it's really, really great. And I might hear some of you thinking, well, it's not really a horror, Emily, but it is from the king of horror, so I'm covering it anyway. First, let's look at our characters, because there are some really accurate adaptations and some interesting changes there too. Our main character, retired detective Bill Hodges, is played by Brendan Gleeson, and I think he is phenomenal in this role. He gives a great performance, and it really feels like the character from the book was just lifted into real life. He really feels accurate to the book. He plays this grizzled, grumpy detective, or ex-detective, really well. You just kind of fall in love with Bill. Not romantically, but just as a character. He's just really endearing straight away, and I just wanted to know more about him immediately. In an interview with Variety, this exchange was shared between King and the interviewer. I've heard that you had Brendan Gleeson in mind for the role of Hodges early on. I did. He looks exactly the way I'd imagined Hodges would look. The only thing I asked was to make sure he keeps his Irish accent, but put in a line or two about why he has it. My suggestion was he emigrated when he was 17 and found the accent helped him get girls and held on to it. It's great because it gives him a chance to concentrate on the part and not worry about the accent. And I mean, you can't blame him. Brendan Gleeson is a really great actor, and I think he really excels in this role. Now, something I really love about this show is the opening credits, and it took me until episode 4 to realise that there were actually little changes happening in the open credits as the episodes go on. It starts with Bill waking up in his armchair normally, with beer cans and food littered around. And as the show goes on and he gets more involved in finding out who the Mercedes killer is, it shows him suiting up, combing his hair, actually getting ready, and going out into the world instead of just hiding away in his house. And it took me until episode 4 to realise that, but I think it's a really cool way of showing Bill's character progression throughout the show. And when tragedy strikes in a later episode, we see Bill go back to being depressed and lazing around the house until he gets back on his feet and starts working the case again. And I just feel like it's a really interesting choice to tell a story through the opening credits as well, and it just helps us understand Bill as a character more, and I really, really love the choice. Our Mercedes killer, Brady Hartsfield, is played by Harry Treadaway. Brady works in an electronics store and also as an ice cream man who drives down Bill Street to kind of keep an eye on him. Now, I think Harry Treadaway plays this role brilliantly. He's incredible. Brady is such a slimy and gross, disgusting character, and you just hate him pretty much from the get-go. And Harry Treadaway's performance really helps sell that just, you hate him so much. And I think, hats off to him. He did it really, really well. I think these two performances at the heart of the show is what gives it its legs. It's just two phenomenal performances. It's two actors at the top of their game. It's really fun to see them at wits against each other throughout the whole show. Now let's have a little look at our secondary characters. Janie, played by Mary Louise Parker, is the sister of the woman whose Mercedes was stolen by Brady to commit the massacre. She hires Bill as a private investigator to look into her sister's suicide because she doesn't believe that her sister actually committed suicide. She thinks she was pushed to it. She and Bill have a little bit of a relationship before she's unfortunately killed by a bomb that Brady puts into Bill's car. In the book, Brady doesn't actually notice it's Janie driving the car when he detonates the bomb, but in the show, he sees her behind the wheel and detonates the bomb anyway. At first, I didn't like that because I liked in the book when he finds out later that he didn't actually kill Bill, he gets really angry. And I kind of missed that, but also in the show I think it works because it really shows how much he's toying with Bill by just ruining Bill's life. Jerome, played by Jarrell Jerome, is very similar to his book counterpart. He's a Harvard-accepted whiz kid who helps Bill with household chores like mowing the lawn, but also technology problems when he needs them. I like Jerome a lot. I think he's a really likeable character, both in the book and the show, but there is a change that I'm glad happened between the book and the show. In the book, Jerome speaks very jive, and it just kind of made me uncomfortable every time I had to read him talking like that. He does it for a joke, and he does it kind of to take the piss out of Bill, but it just always kind of made me feel a bit weird. And Stephen King is very well known for throwing the N-word around, and this book is no exception. It does come mostly from Brady using that word to describe Jerome, and thankfully that doesn't happen in the show either. Brady doesn't really have a specific hatred like that in the show. So yeah, I'm kind of glad they scrapped that stuff. I don't think it was needed. Jerome is still really funny and sarcastic in the show without having to delve into that bit of the book. Holly, played by Justine Loop, is Janie's cousin. Holly has very little presence in the first half of the book, but has a really important part to play at the very end. And same goes in the show. She appears in episode 6 and then grows to have a really important role too. In the book, Holly is described as a middle-aged woman, but in the show she's 31 and a half years old. I think the showrunners made this choice so Holly would be closer in age to Bill's daughter, who he has a bit of an estranged relationship with, so we would get a more paternal vibe from Bill. When we meet Holly, she is a nervous wreck, and she has all sorts of traits for all sorts of neurodiversities. Like I said, when she introduces herself, she is 31 and a half years old. And if she shakes someone's hand, she has to use the other hand and shake their hand too, so everything is equal and balanced out. Now, I really like Holly as a character, and she goes on to feature in the rest of the Bill Hodges trilogy, as well as some other books continuing on from that, including The Outsider, which I have already covered, so check that out if you haven't already. While both versions I've seen of Holly in this show and The Outsider are very different in a lot of ways to her book counterpart, I really like both of them, and I think they both work for their respective shows, so I would find it really hard to pick a favourite version of Holly, but just overall, I think she's a really fun character. A new character was created for the show who I was initially hesitant of, but I really grew to like her. Ida, played by Holland Taylor, is Bill's neighbour, who he sometimes confides in, has dinner with, and whatever. And she serves as kind of the narration for Bill. The book is written in a way where it goes between Bill and Brady's perspectives, and we get their inner dialogue and inner narration. And I think the showrunners were correct in saying that it wasn't going to be a good show if it was just narrated the whole way through by both Bill and Brady. So Ida was brought in as a character, so we get some of that inner dialogue and narration from Bill through his conversations with her, and I think it really works. In the book, we have Freddie, but in the show she's called Lou for some reason, and she's played by Breda Wall. She's Brady's co-worker at the electronics store, and she features a lot more in this show than she does in the book, though she does go on to feature in the later books a lot heavier, but we won't touch that now. Like Ida acts as the narration standpoint for Bill, Lou does the same for Brady. We get to know him a little bit more at his workplace, and she can kind of piece together stuff a little bit as the story goes along that something's not quite right about Brady, but she can't quite put her fingers on it. And even when she's presented with police saying, we think Brady might be the Mercedes killer, she's like, no, Brady's really lovely to me. And it's just nice to have a different viewpoint of Brady, although it is very different to the book viewpoint, because in the book she's called Freddie, and she's a lesbian, and much like how Brady refers to Jerome as some very hurtful words, Brady does the same for Freddie in the book. And again, I'm glad we didn't kind of touch on that. She gets discriminated against by other characters, but Brady actually acts quite sweet towards her, which again just delves into that manipulation that Brady is really good at. And Stephen King also makes a fun little cameo. I mean, fun might be the wrong word here, but Brady has a bit of a fantasy about something and Stephen King appears in it, which I thought was quite funny. Let's examine the plot a bit closer now, because I think the plot is actually pretty faithful to the book. Bill receives a physical letter from the Mercedes killer inviting him to go to a website called Under Debbie's Blue Umbrella, where the two can anonymously chat. In the book, these are simply typed messages between the two, but in the show, Bill and Brady actually have video calls with each other, albeit Brady is covered with a filter, so Bill can't make out his face, but they have these physical chats through the camera, and you can just feel the rage kind of boiling in Bill as he talks to him on camera. And I think having that little bit more closeness with Brady just really fuels the paranoia in Bill in the show. He's really erratic, and there's points where he's really dazed and he's walking around his house with the gun drawn because he thinks someone's in his house, and he really believes that Brady is in his house and tormenting him. And even as the viewer, sometimes you're not sure if what's happening is actually happening or if Bill is just imagining it. And I think having that bit of closeness with the communication through the video chats instead of just typed messages, I think it really fuels that. Something that's really uncomfortable to watch but integral to the plot and Brady as a character is his relationship with his mother. I think the show does a really good job of highlighting this kind of incestuous relationship they have, and it helps you understand Brady a bit more, the way he was raised and kind of why he is the way he is. It's not, an excuse, but it just adds to the depth of his character, knowing that he's had a bit of a rocky childhood. And both the book and the show had me squirming during those scenes because they're really awful to read and to watch, but I think it is a really important part of Brady's character, so I'm glad they didn't just gloss over it in the show. Now, obviously at the start of the book we have the massacre at the job fair where he drives the Mercedes into a crowd of people, but he tells Bill, and he expresses various points throughout the book, that he's got a bigger plan. And eventually, after certain things happen with his mother, where she unfortunately is killed, or not unfortunately, depending on how you view her and their relationship, he decides he's going to kill himself, but he's going to make a big impact while he does so. In the book, he decides to go to a boy band concert because he knows there's going to be lots of children there and it will be a really dramatic exit. Now, this show came out in August 2017, which was just a few months after the really tragic incident where a bomb went off at an Ariana Grande concert. And I do remember at the time this being in the news about this show because of how the book ends, but they changed that. It doesn't happen at a concert, it happens at an art centre that's just opening. At a press tour panel for the series, executive producer Jack Bender said that the show's choice to change the ending was actually decided early on and was, quote, a much better way to make it a potentially more catastrophic event, end quote, and it wasn't in response to the tragedy. And despite this change from a massive concert to quite a small art centre being opened, I think the stakes feel just as raised in the show. It's really filmed well. Now, in this scene, as Bill is just kind of running around this art centre trying to find Brady, he starts to suffer from a heart attack, and I felt my heart pounding because it was just a really stressful scene and it was shot really well and acted really well. And yeah, it just had my heart racing. And this is a change from the book. In the book, Bill doesn't make it into the concert venue. He starts to suffer from the heart attack before, and he sends Jerome and Holly in to finish the job and find Brady. Whereas in the show, Bill is right there with them, and he's suffering from a heart attack, and he's got his gun out pointed at Brady. He's found Brady. Brady is holding the detonator for the bomb, and he's starting to kind of wave in and out of consciousness because he's having this heart attack when Holly steps in. In the book, Holly subdues Brady with a homemade weapon that Bill had given to her called the Happy Slapper, which is a sock filled with ball bearings. But in the show, she doesn't use this. She instead uses a small bulldog statue that Bill had given to her in a previous episode, which has some kind of significant meaning to Bill. So I feel like it's quite a nice poignant thing. It's still something from Bill, but I do kind of miss the Happy Slapper. Including the outsider, this is 2 times Holly should have really beat the shit out of someone with the Happy Slapper, and I'm sad that that still hasn't happened yet. Mr. Mercedes is among my favourite Stephen King books. I think it's a really compelling story, and I think this show did a really good job of translating it to the screen. I think it made some changes that were worth making, and it didn't detract from the original story at all. I had a great time rereading the book and finally getting around to watching the show because I didn't actually watch it when it was on TV. And while I adore the book, I think I'm going to have to give it to the show, and I think it is just down to the stellar performances from Brendan Gleeson and Harry Treadaway. I think they're such compelling leads, and the show really lives or dies on their performance because you're just so hooked on knowing what's going to happen with the pair of them. Have you read the book and/or watched the show? Which did you prefer? Do you agree with me that the show's better, or do you really like the book? Let me know either way in the comments. And if you are a fan of Stephen King, I've previously covered The Long Walk and The Outsider, so check those out and let me know what you think of those too. If you're just a general horror fan, maybe you have a book recommendation for me that you think I should check out, so let me know in the comments as well. But thanks so much for watching. We're really grateful that you've taken the time to watch. Maybe think about giving us a follow, but thank you.